Angelito, if you work here at the Rembrandt House, you demonstrate the etching process. So this is the exciting part, to see how it's all done and how Rembrandt created these incredible prints. So why don't you show me the details?
Let's start at the beginning with what exactly an etching is. So what I'm holding right now, right here, this is known as an etch plate. An etch plate is actually nothing more than just a copper plate with either some scratches, a drawing, or an engraving inside of it. Now the etch plate right here is known as the 3 trees. So there are 3 techniques to etching. We have the first technique, which is known as the engraving technique. So this right here is a burin. The burin has a very sharp V-shaped tip sloping down. You'd actually put down like so, and I'm gonna just hover a tiny bit over it as to not ruin it. And in a very controlled motion, you would kind of cut within the copper plate itself and get very straight, controlled lines like so.
And this is the oldest engraving technique of all, so it goes back to even the 15th century.
So as you can see, the result, after we create an impression with the engraving technique, you'll get the lines right here in the middle. Very sharp and very controlled lines. Now the second technique is going to be the dry point needle, the dry point technique. So this right here is a dry point needle. It's just a metallic needle with a very, very sharp point. This right here is going to be a very rough technique because, as you can see, in order for me to create lines, I'd scratch directly into our copper plate and create our lines this way. Now, as you might have noticed, the copper didn't come out of the plate, but that copper still needed to be moved somewhere in order for me to draw lines in here. Instead of pushing the copper out as the engraving needle would do, the dry point needle would push the copper to the side, creating kind of brambles alongside these lines. So these brambles are very tiny, minuscule metallic edges. So after we create an impression, we'll be left with a very soft and a very velvety line, if you look at it.
And that's what we call burr, when it creates these feathery, very velvety effect.
Yeah, exactly. Then we've got the last technique, the etching technique. So this right here is known as an etching needle. And just like the other 2 techniques, we would grab a copper plate, right? But this time we would do it just a little different. This time we would apply an etching ground beforehand. And then our copper plate will kind of be dipped into it. Now this etching ground, as you can imagine, is going to be very, very soft and very easy to get lines in here. So for example, if I take this corner right here, you can see that it takes minimal to no effort to draw lines. You can try it as well and just compare it to the dry point needle.
Oh wow, yes.
A lot easier, right?
It's like drawing on a piece of paper.
It exactly is. And this is because instead of going directly into the copper plate like the engraving needle or the dry point needle would, I'm just removing, or you've just removed, the top layer of that very soft etching background, right? I can already tell you that these lines right here are definitely not deep enough or steep enough for ink to be able to flow into. So if we are using this etching technique, we would need to apply, well, a following step. Now this following step involves creating an airtight bucket out of this beeswax, because now we're going to bathe it in an acid. And so nitric acid would be used, and nitric acid is aggressive enough to bite into the copper itself, but it would not be able to bite away this etching ground. Now everywhere where we've exposed that copper, right, creating these lines, really exposing the copper, these were the parts that would be bitten into. So what we've got here is one of Rembrandt etchings. Not the original ones. This is going to be one of the copies which we created from the original ones.
And you had it on this heating plate, so can you explain what this is for?
Yes, of course. So I am very, very lucky, right? I have a beautiful heating element right here. Unfortunately for Rembrandt, he did not possess a heating element of this scale, right? So he would just use a candle. As you can see, or the ink that we use is very robust and very sturdy. And so the reason that we heat up our plate beforehand is so that this ink can kind of it will be easier to distribute over the plate, and it will kind of help it melt within the lines as well.
Okay. And so what was the ink, sorry to interrupt, what was the ink made of?
So the ink, it would be linseed oil combined with a pigment.
And the black would be essentially soot, ash, right? From burnt bones. And
crush it up, and that would be your pigment.
Okay.
So let's grab a little bit of this ink, and I'm going to just fully coat the whole entirety of this plate. And as you can see, that thick and sturdy ink is actually very easily distributed because it has that little heat to it.
And now this plate he would have etched it, put it in the acid bath, taken it out, then clean off the etched ground, right? And then essentially it's ready to print.
Yes. So, as you can see...
So now it's fully inked up?
Fully coated and inked, indeed. So now I really need to make sure that all of these lines and grooves that have been kind of engraved within our etch plate have actually been filled up with this ink, which is why I will use the following tool. This right here is a dabber. I'm just going to gently dab all of that ink within these lines. And this is crucial.
So you press it down into the little grooves in the plate.
Yes. And of course, this is very crucial if you want that detailed print, right? All right.
It's quite messy, isn't it?
Yeah, as you can see, my hands will be very dirty afterwards. Now, I'll have to undo most of my hard work. And I will do this by scraping off that surface layer of ink. This will reveal the drawing underneath, and it will bring our plate back to life again. So this is what our etch plate looks like right now. As you can see, the drawing is almost fully visible again, but I just need to clean it up just a tad bit more. And I will do this with a tarlatan. So I will use this tool, since it has a lot of holes as well, to kind of scrub on the surface layer of my plate. And those little holes will kind of grab all of the ink on the surface level, and it will leave alone the ink within those lines.
So that's an important stage, because Rembrandt also experimented a lot with how much ink he would leave on the surface, which we call plate tone.
So I think I'm kind of satisfied right now. Maybe one more good scrub. Right? I'm just going to quickly clean off the sides. If I leave these sides on and I'll create an impression, I'll be left with very hard edges.
Yeah, Rembrandt sometimes didn't clean his edges very well, and then you have what we call inky plate edges. But whether that was on purpose to sort of frame the work, or whether he just didn't care, who knows?
Who knows? So now I will have to, well, gently wipe off the remaining traces of ink, right? So I will finish it off with the base of my hand. So I will dip my palm in some chalk and then gently hit the surface of this plate to really get the last traces of ink off it. So now, as you can see, we have a very clean plate, and the only ink that remains is within these lines. So now I'm actually able to create an impression.
Okay, let's do that.
All right.
So with face up, and
yes,
then
with the lines and grooves facing up, since we're now going to lay our paper right on top.
And the paper is humidified, right?
Yes, it has to be a little damp indeed.
And then we put the felt down.
Felt over it, like so, and
That keeps it flat.
would you like to do the honors?
Sure. It's quite hard. Now I can already feel the plate.
The pressure?
Yeah.
The pressure will release right around here as well, which tells me it's already on the other side.
Yes. Okay, and now we have a print. Fantastic. With a little bit of plate tone, but super sharp. Beautiful.